So we did a bunch of things with search bars. We could, what do you think we could do with this, Michelle? Michelle, you are the knight in shining armor for the job of the model. What could we do with this information? We could put it in the model. We could totally put it on the model. So people is a collection of people. So you might have a static function for a collection of people, or we might just try to do it with a button. Are you okay? Is everyone all right? Okay. We might move this into a different model. Maybe a group of people is called, a group of persons is called, I don't know, a directory. Say this is a phone book and we're looking at phone numbers. We can move that into the model. Do that on your own, I don't care. I want to show you how you can filter for multiple things. Are you excited? All right. You asked for it. I know you actually didn't, but if we go to the storyboard, a search bar is of type UI search bar. Cool, that's its own class, right? Which means it has its own attributes, a whole bunch of stuff. In those attributes is a group of somethings called scope titles. Let's go look at our view controller, look at that search bar, and see if we can figure out what that thing is called. So in our search bar outlet, I'm just doing this in any random place, search bar outlet dot, let's look through. Scope button titles, interesting. An array of strings indicating the titles of the scope buttons. Whoa. So a search bar, a UI search bar, can get you an array of strings for the titles of its scope buttons. The hell is a scope button, you might say? Well, I've got the answer for you. If we go back to where I was looking, you can add scope titles, which create a bar that lets you change the type of search you want to do. So I'm going to create two of them. One's going to be for name, like we've been doing. Let me edit it, please. Thank you. Name. The other one, let's go look at the model of people. Sam, what do you want to filter on besides name? Okay, we can try phone. It's interesting. We're going to learn a little bit more. It's going to be totally optional about how you can deal with a string like this, because we're going to see there's an issue. Where are we? Oh, here. Okay. So we want to be able to search by name and search by phone. Great. I want to point out in the attributes inspector, very important, you must check off shows scope bar in order to, what do you think that button does, Albert? What do you think would happen if it wasn't checked off, Liana? Let's see what happens when it's not there. Oh. I don't see anything. I'm trying to search. All right, type in some names. I don't know. It's not doing anything. All right. Now I need, when I check it off, Nima, what do you see that's different? This is the scope. These are the scopes. So we're saying if I click this, I want to search by name. If I click this, I want to search by phone. How do y'all feel about that? How did I change the name of my buttons? Can someone tell Levi how I did that? Cool. Tia. Guys, I can't hear Tia. I'm sorry. Can you? I couldn't hear you. Can you ask that again?
Yeah. Could you search by phone number before without the scope button? Because I feel like you
I was only searching by names. You could. How do you think you could do that? Don't break. Don't break. So before, if I wanted to search for two things, bless you, I could have filtered by seeing if the thing contains that phone number. I'm sorry, we did it with names. Could have said do that, or literally, or do that with the property phone. And what this would do is it would filter returns an array that's filtered, right? And it would put in that array anything, it would put in that array anything that either has the name matching my search or the phone number matching my search. So we could take a look at this right now. I could show you what that looks like. It's a great question because, again, what we're seeing in this view controller is, like, on the highest level, filter returns an array. So long as in this closure you do stuff that helps me return items from the people array, it doesn't matter what you do in there. Now we are making design decisions. Search bar before, search for names, because that seemed pretty intuitive. Now we are going to search for name or phone. When we look in the user interface, I'm going to get rid of these scopy things. Go away. Go away. Get rid of the scope bar. Let's say, look for Leslie or look for 397. And so this thing will search by name or phone. That's great. We could have changed up the search bar to have a placeholder that says search by name or phone. Look, the search bar has some attributes. One of those is a placeholder. Great. Where's my placeholder at? Place. Let's see how we can get that placeholder to work. Maybe if we take off translucent. There we go. Search by name phone. There's a placeholder there telling you how to use it. That's great. Wow. Can't type. Search by name phone. And this tells us you can search by name or phone. But that's not anything in our code. That's just updating the view to tell people how to use it, right? That's about the user experience. So something that we might do to improve the user experience or make it more intuitive is we might separate those two responsibilities out into two different search bar scopes. So one scope might be name, one scope might be number, like we said, name and phone. Okay, we'll add the scope bar. We will get rid of this placeholder. We could probably alternate what that placeholder is, depending on the scope, which is pretty cool. But for now, all we have to say is, ready? Are you ready? Okay, Aram's ready. So in here, we've got the search bar text, right? We want to now just check, okay, is it nil or not? Is it an empty string? And now we want to say if let scope titles equal, what's our search bar called? Search bar outlet dot. Let's see if we start typing scope. All right, that thing that we saw before. If we let it equal that, I'm using optional binding because this thing, this scope button titles, is optional because they might not exist at all. If we let that happen, there's something else on a search bar called search bar dot selected scope button index. What do you think that is, Angela? Cool. And what we can say is, since scope button titles is an array of strings, and this selected is an int, we can just look in that array of strings, scope titles, at the current scope, so I'll say current scope index to make that a little clearer. And this will give us one of the two strings for our scope, one of which was name and the other which was phone. It'll give us the two names, which is great. Now we can say, let's switch. This thing is going to be a string. So the case, if it is name, I'm going to do this whole thing. I'm going to return what we searched for before. Case the string phone, I'm going to return that filter for phone. So now we did a search before for Tia's kind of like combined search. If we wanted to separate that out, we do that here. I got an error. Let's see what that does. Switch must be exhaustive. How do I fix that? Allison. I got an error. What do I do? No. Work. There we go. I'm going to say in the default, we return people. And again, people is a constant. People never gets altered. That's the information we started with. We don't want to change that. Instead, we want to look at it and filter it and return the information at various points in our search. So now let's see what happens. So it's the same thing as before, and then we added this scope title stuff. So when I'm searching by name, lets me look at Leslie. But if I try to search a number, it doesn't pick it up. But if I change the scope button index, I can search by name. I'm sorry, by number. Neato. Yep. Yep. Oh, I got rid of that. That no longer goes there. See. Oh no, I have to return something. I'll say need be return people. Build it. So these filters are pretty much the same thing. Name and phone are both properties of a person that are strings, and I'm just seeing if that string contains whatever I've searched for, but I've gotten rid of any capital letters. That's all lowercase means. Typically, like when you're doing this kind of pattern matching, we could call it, make sure that all of your strings are, say as a good rule of thumb, lowercase, then you don't have to worry about capitals. The only time you would probably care about capitals is when you're doing like a password. You know, most password like generators say you have to have an uppercase and a lowercase and a number and some kind of punctuation. That's a good time for that. Otherwise, like if I want to check that Albert Oliveira and Liana Norman are both here, but you know, one of them spells their name all uppercase and one of them spells it mixed cases, and Kimball spells everything lowercase. If I just convert all strings to lowercase, then I don't have to worry about the way that the data actually exists. So that's why I did lowercase. That's it. So now I'm going to commit this stuff, check my git status. Oh man, I changed something in the storyboard. Let's do a diff. Git people search table view controller / views. What's the diff there? Okay, I think I moved something with the search. Oh, and there's some scope button titles. Great. So I can git add that thing. Git commit. Adds scope button titles to search bar. Now I made some other changes in my controller. Let's check the diff. Now look at that. I see, oh, I changed up how the filter works because I had those scope titles. So I'm going to say git commit updates search filter for scope title setup. Something like that. Damn, I didn't do it. Why didn't I do it? Because I didn't add that. I just looked at the diff. Git add that file. Git commit now. Let's look at my Git log. I think Eric and I have done a really good job since this morning of changing things. Great. I'm going to push that up to GitHub. What are some questions you have? Do you see how like dynamic our apps are getting already? A person can use the view to directly interface with the information in the model. And who's coordinating all of that, Sunny? Well, I've just got a more general question for you. My view here, the thing that people are interacting with, now goes and it searches through stuff in the model. And who's mediating that stuff? What's mediating that interaction? Yeah, but on the highest level, I've got a view. The view doesn't actually touch the model. Who? Yes, perfect. So this is the real job of the view controller. It's not to have model stuff in it. It's not to have view stuff in it, but it's to handle the interaction of those. This is a more complex interaction than we've seen before. And as Michelle would love to point out, there's definitely a way we could refactor this filter code to be more of like a model situation. You guys want to see something really obnoxious? You don't have to pay attention to this. Okay. Scroll down, sorry. What? It's on GitHub. But I can explain parts if you'd like. Okay, let's go back. Before, in my storyboard, this search thing just searched for one thing. And we looked at that string. We said, okay, I've got a delegate method for this view controller that for any search bar that has as this view controller its delegate, go look at the search bar's text of that search bar and assign to the variable in my view controller search string the text of that search bar. So whatever people have typed in. Now we say When we set that value, reload the data in our table view. So the interaction is literally whenever someone changes text, reload the data. The data we changed from just looking at this static set of information, people, so this constant people, which is a group of probably like 200 people, before we were initializing our table view with the number of people in there for the number of rows and the information from that people array for the information that went into each cell. But then we said, actually, I want the number of people in there to change based on that search string. And so the filter we came up with before was filter to see that people contains whatever text, filter to see which people's names contain whatever text was input in the search bar. That's what this filter is. So before we added these scope titles nonsense, that's what we were doing in our search bar. We could change this filter and make it do any number of things. We could say, see if the name contains it, or see if the, let's look at some properties of people. See if the phone contains that string, see if the location contains that string. And then without these tabs, the search bar would look for all of those. And we might put a placeholder saying, you can search by this, that, or the other thing. That's where we added for our search bar, that's where we added a placeholder text. That was indicating to the user, here's how you can use my search bar. But we wanted to make it even more apparent how to do it. So we said, to search by name, you click this tab. To search by phone, you click that tab. And those things are the scope titles for our search bar. I created those here. So if I open the attributes inspector for a search bar, it has what ends up being an array of strings whose property name is scope titles. The two strings in this specific search bar are name and phone. Then I needed to make sure to check off shows scope bar because, Carrie, why did I check that off? Why did I check off this button right here, or this little check mark here? So I could see name and phone up here. Because otherwise they wouldn't have showed up and you wouldn't have been able to tap them, and what would have been the point? Cool. So when I run that with my old code, there's nothing in the code that handles the difference between name and phone. There's nothing in there that handles, hey, when you've selected this one, I only want to search by number. And when you've selected this one, I only want to search by name. There's nothing in there doing that. And so what I did was I went and I looked at those scope button titles. There are two scope button titles. What are they, Sam? Name and phone. I said, if those things exist as an array, go and see in the search bar the selected scope button index. Literally, which one of these is tapped? 0 or 1, probably, because we're talking about indexes, and there are 2. Excuse me. Get me that index. Then I said, for scope button titles, find the one in the index of the currently selected scope button. That's a string. So let's switch on the two strings that we know exist in there. One of those is name, one of those is phone, and then I just set up the filters that we do for each of those. So with our data, people have a name, people have a phone. When I've tapped name, I want to do the name filter. When I've tapped phone, I want to do the phone filter. By default, I'm just going to return people. I'm going to say if none of this worked, I'm just going to give you back all of the people. so that it can start over. Hopefully you don't hate me even though my app doesn't work in the exact way you want. So that's what that default is there for. Then this down here was something messy that I left, so I deleted that last filter. This filter was from before I added those buttons, so I deleted that. And now, the way that this app works is when you tap phone and you type, it does this filter on people. When I tap name and I type, it does this filter on people. So name filters by the property name on a person object. Phone filters by the property phone on a person object. So you don't want to see the really cool thing. Oh, it's obnoxious. Yeah. Okay, so the obnoxious thing is called regular expressions. Regular expression. What's a regular expression? It's a sequence of characters that define a search pattern. This is the first time we've ever set up a search pattern. Isn't that tight? Usually such patterns are used by string searching algorithms for find or find and replace. Oh, so you mean when I go into my Google Docs, and I go to something called the instruction handbook, it goes and when I say Command F, it starts searching by some pattern of letters? Interesting. And this file is so big that it's going to take forever for it to load? Nice. So a regular expression is just a way I can search or filter through strings. Really cool. All right. The current filter we're using in our code is the contains. When we try to filter by phone numbers, Sam, what was the issue we ran into? Say for this person. How did the search that you and I were doing before not work? What did I type into the app? Like when we were searching by phone, and if I wanted to get this number, I had to type the punctuation, right? If I wanted to say 1436993, I can't say 1436993 because our contains just says take that whole string and see if you find it. So I would have to type 143-6993. And if I put a space at the end, it would look for that too. So regular expression is maybe a more advanced version of doing something like it contains to match patterns. Again, you do not have to pay attention to this if you don't want. I think it's really cool shit. And let me show you how it works. Regular expressions in Swift. Like everyone else in the Pacific Northwest, we got snowed in. All right, who cares? Oh, wow. If someone were to ask, var invitation, hey, would you like to play Clue? Invitation.contains Cluedo would be false. What if I had to say, fancy a game of Cluedo? Invitation.contains Cluedo is true. A regular expression would allow me to relax my exacting standards. So contains, with this string, needed you to look for the whole, it would need to see the whole string Cluedo. What this person wants to do is be able to match a pattern that says, this is cool, this pattern says, look for the word clue. The letters DO can also be adjacent to it, and the symbol TM can also be adjacent to it. Sharpen your pencils, gather your detective notes, and warm up your six-sided die, because this week we cracked the case of the cumbersome class known as regular expression. Who killed regular expressions in Swift? Who cares? Don't worry about that. Again, this is one of those things, and I just want to show you, I'm making a programming terms and topics document. These are not Swift related things, but these are other things that I think you all should know about because you might be asked about them later on in life. You might need to know what they are later on in life. Does anyone remember what deprecated or deprecation is? Yeah, so something you can probably use right now but might be outdated or might not be supported by whoever makes that like framework or set of code or whatever it is in the future. Does anyone remember, ooh, never mind. You're not going to go into floats and doubles and how they work. What? Twice as many decimal places, yes. But do you remember why a float is called a float? It's a floating point decimal. What does that mean? Oh, there's a whole thing to it. Let's check it out. Wow, it has something to do with how memory works. Computer architecture bit widths. Huh. All right. Implementations. I don't know. Let's look for an important word. Damn. Floating point, mantissa, and exponent. We learned some stuff. Yay. Well, look at this stuff. There's some math theory to how things work. All right, this isn't in the obnoxious part, but we should probably find out more about how floats work. I think I might add all of you to this document. 6.1 Core Fellows. You can comment if you want to add stuff. I want to keep track of the DSA stuff. I think we should be able to talk about everything in this document, especially including extreme programming. Does anyone know what that means? Has anyone heard any of these terms before? Could you tell me a little bit about what agile is?
It's very vague for current meaning, but it's how a team works together.
Okay. What's a sprint?
So a sprint is like usually a 2-week period of time during which programming team, development team works on projects, and that's it. So at the beginning of the sprint, they decide what to work on. That's what they work on for 2 weeks. At the end of 2 weeks, they decide a new agenda for the next sprint. And if you are in a different department, if you need something on your website fixed, and you get it on this sprint.
Cool, huh? But now that you're a developer, it's important that you stick to your 2 weeks because then you can prioritize things.
Put in a ticket.
Put in a ticket,
You do it on the next sprint.
yes.
Remember doing sprints and then you said we're going to be doing something with like the time?
Yes.
We're going to like code for like a certain amount of time.
Yeah. We're going to start that today when you pair program together.
Oh, no, it's
Okay. Yeah, a sprint is a specific way of doing things. Industry practices, let's say like time management. The thing you were talking about was the Pomodoro technique. Cool. Who has had a code review here? Tia, have you ever had a code review? I'm sorry? Have you ever had a code review? Okay. Has anyone ever reviewed your code? Okay. Think of that like a code review. Unit testing, we're going to talk about in 2 weeks. It's how you make sure your code works before other people even try it. Stand-ups are part of agile software development. They are a way of having a really quick meeting so that people don't just talk and talk and talk and talk and talk. One person talking the entire time. How does everyone feel about that every day? What are your thoughts on one person talking all the time? Excuse me, I'm talking. What do you think about just one person talking all the time? Stand-ups are a way of having a really quick meeting in which you tell people what you're doing, what's working and what's not, and then you get the hell out of there and you go back to work. We're going to practice agile and stand-ups when we start doing group projects, which I really hope we can start doing very soon. I don't always get everything I want, though. Cool. So here's a list of things. Look through it. DSA I'm going to add as you do DSA. Boom. Regular expressions, though. That's what I was talking about. I'm just going to post this in Slack. But this is a regular expression. It is saying, here is a pattern of text I want you to look at. See if it exists in there. And if it does, this range function is going to return true or false. I think it's really fun to mess with. Let's see if there's an online regex checker for Swift. Sim 105, regex tester. Cool. I'm going to put this in Slack. So what this is this is a pattern. Doesn't that look really cool? That's a pattern that it's attempting to match some of the text in this text string. I really love regex. I think it's really cool. We can disagree if you don't like it. It's okay. So, damn it. Hello, question. What's your name? What's going on? We could look into the implementation of .contains. .contains, foundation.string. Foundation.string. I don't know, it won't tell me anything. Let's go look it up on my best friend Google and see if we can find it. Swift, string, contains, implementation. So we want to say literally, how is that function defined? Contains. Returns a Boolean value indicating whether the sequence contains the given element. Cool. Contains the element to find in the sequence. There's something else called all satisfy, which uses probably a closure. Whoa, that's nice. But this doesn't really tell us how contains works. I think the key word is sequence. I'm sorry? Yeah. Swift string sequence. A string is a sequence of characters surrounded by double quotation marks. We should probably find out more about what a sequence is in Swift. Sequence. A type? I'm not recursing. I've actually found my base case. Here's a protocol. A protocol can't implement anything else, so it's actually a pretty good base case. A protocol is a sequence. It's a list of values that can step through one at a time. Huh. What do you think? Damn it, they tell you. The most common way to iterate over the elements of a sequence is to use a for-in loop. So anything that conforms to sequence. Anything that conforms to sequence can be iterated through. Check that out. Isn't that wild? So Swift, even in the way that you use it, is built in Swift. Equatable, that double equal sign that just looks like, oh, I got to know what double equal sign means. It's actually a function that's implemented in a protocol called what, Anthony? Remember the protocol name for double equal sign? Equatable. Awesome. And you just mentioned another one. What's comparable? So those are actually implemented in Swift. Those are functions. Wild. A sequence, when implemented, says literally, how do you loop through this item or a set of these items? So you could take your type, maybe from this morning. I could say that I'm going to extend person, extension person to be a sequence. Let's see what's required to be a sequence. Doesn't conform to type protocol, to sequence, protocol sequence. It's not giving me stubs though. So let's go and Google required implementation sequence protocol Swift. Ooh. Same page. All right. Let's keep looking. Provides many things for many common operations that depend on sequential access to a sequence's value. For clearer, more concise code, the example could use the contains. What? Repeated access. I don't know. Conforming to the sequence protocol. To add sequence conformance to your custom type, add a makeIterator method that returns an iterator. MakeIterator. So a function called makeIterator that returns an iterator. What is that? Let's find out more about what an iterator is. A type that provides the sequence's iteration interface and encapsulates its iteration state. Who wants to do that? Cool, all right, so let's set up pairs.